This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, Avram, it is almost that time where your life gets super crazy.
It's already getting there. It's already getting there. So we are preparing. We're this year not only going to be covering all kinds of deals, but we're trying to do some more. I mean, our theme for this year is like what things can we test in advance of the holiday that people might be interested in, so that we can actually make recommendations, some more recommendations based on testing. So one product category that is very relevant to us at Tom's Hardware, but we've never tested before in terms of benchmarking stuff, because it's a rather an expensive product, and there's a lot of, it's somewhat of a commodity, but we want to see what differences we might find. So we are testing SSD enclosures, SSD and hard drive enclosures. Now, let me take a step back for those who don't know what it is, because when I mentioned this to my 10-year-old, she's like, "What is that?" Then I showed it to him, and he understood. So an SSD enclosure is, you've got an SSD, maybe it's an M2 size SSD, maybe it's a 2.5-inch SATA SSD. Here's one for an M2 SSD, for example. And you want to take this drive that normally is an internal drive and stick it in one of these enclosures, and then you can connect it via USB to your computer and turn it into an external drive. And you would want to do that for a couple of different reasons. One, you might have an old drive lying around. Maybe you upgraded your main drive in the computer, and now you want an external backup drive to carry around. Maybe there's a great sale on an SSD and you want to turn it into an external drive. Or here's another possibility. Maybe you need to clone the SSD in your computer for your upgrade. I mean, this is quite a common scenario. Let's say your C drive is a terabyte, and you see a lovely new 2 terabyte drive on sale, and you want to turn that into your boot drive, into your C drive. And before you put it in, you take the new drive, put it in one of these enclosures, attach it to USB, run disk cloning software, and you can make a perfect copy of your drive sector by sector, and then it's ready to go. And that's actually really relevant for laptops where you couldn't put both drives in at the same time if you wanted to, because there's usually only one slot, right? So we've tested a bunch of these, and first let's talk about your choices and what you can expect to pay. So to start with, there's really two kinds of SSDs that you might enclose. There is an M2 SSD, which looks like a little stick almost like a stick of RAM. And those are usually usually use the NVMe protocol. And those are faster and more modern. And you can get an enclosure for an M2 SSD, and it's kind of stick-like this. Or let's say you had a 2.5-inch SSD, then you would need to get a different enclosure for that, one that takes a SATA drive, and it would be a little bit bigger like this. So for a basic SATA enclosure, that will attach to your USB, to a regular USB Type A port on your computer, and spit things out at over its 5 gigabit per second interface, you can spend about $12 to $15. Very cheap. Similarly, if you want an M2 enclosure, like this one. You can get one that is as cheap as $18 to $20. And those will operate most likely, most of those will operate over 10 gigabit, over a 10 gigabit per second connection. So if you have a USB 10 gigabit connection, which would probably be, otherwise described as USB 3.2 Gen 2 or USB 3.1 Gen 2, but you don't need to know that. You just need to know 10 gigabit connection. You can get up to 10 gigabit per second connection. And that doesn't mean you're actually going to transfer 10 gigabits per second, but that's the port. Finally, there are 20 gigabit per second enclosures, but there aren't very many of them because that's a kind of an odd, not a common connection. The next level up is to get one that uses USB 4 or Thunderbolt, like this. And these can do 40 gigabit per second connections, but these are expensive. These are up in the $130, $140 range. So that's a lot to get that added speed. When we talk about speed, what are we really talking about in terms of real tests? So I have a spreadsheet in front of me of stuff that we've tested. And there, to be fair, within the same connection family, there's not huge deltas between one enclosure and another. If they're 10 gigabit, the numbers are fairly close, but you would be able to, with an M2 SSD, like an NVMe SSD, able to write at about 500, we were seeing about 538 to 564 megabytes per second, and read at a rate of maybe 700 to 720 megabytes per second. So pretty decent. That's for a 10 gigabit connection, right? With the Thunderbolt connection, or otherwise known as USB 4, the rates the actual file copy rate was not the theoretical rates. Theoretical maximum transfer rates were higher, but the real file copy that we did of a 25 gigabyte folder, the read rate was 1,154 or 1,188, so about 1,100, and the write rate was still 540, 550. So it's not that much faster to get the Thunderbolt drive. Perhaps if you're doing much larger transfers, you would see a bigger difference. So let's talk about some of the individual models that we've tested. So if you want something on the cheap, this one here is an SSK SHEC 3325, and it costs $20, and it comes with the cables that you need, and you can just pop your SSD into it, but it's a little bit of a tight fit. And a lot of these are made to really only be used to not be used repeatedly. What I mean is not to be changed repeatedly. Like, this is a screw hole in it. You're kind of supposed to screw your drive in, and then it also comes with a thermal pad that I think kind of melts into place. So you don't have to use those things, but it's kind of that's kind of the expectation. For if you're planning to kind of swap drives in and out, I really like this one the best. This is this is called the pluggable M2 enclosure. I don't think it actually has like a model number. And this one is toolless. It doesn't require a screwdriver of it and it has this little spring loaded thing here, and you just pop it and it slides open. So I really like this one. This is a little more expensive. It's $33 as opposed to, like $20. But if you're someone who's doing like disk cloning and you're just like, hey, I'm going to be swapping my SSDs in and out, this is a really good. It's also a little bit nicer looking. That feels a little bit nicer made.
That's what I was thinking. If you're doing a lot of disk cloning, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, because you want one that's easy to eject from if you're doing disk cloning. You don't want one where it's like, oh yeah, you got to screw this in. Now, if you want sort of like the creme de la creme of fancy, then there's this. The dock case, this is by a company called Dock Case, and it is their M2 Dock Case's M2 enclosure. It has a screen on it. I don't know why it's like plugging in. It's like, and it actually shows you some specs on your drive here, and it shows you like when it's on or whatever, when it's, and right now I guess just opening File Explorer or whatever, it shows you how much is left. It keeps saying it's writing. It also has a feature that, and you can actually like change what's on the display a little bit. So like, now it also has a feature on it that I don't quite understand the value of, but perhaps you do. It's like when I'm moving the wire, it's sort of plugging and unplugging itself in a weird way. Anyway, so this is $50, and it's got a really nice, really nice build quality to it. This is real metal here, and of course it has the screen. It's definitely meant to not be swapping in and out. It's got like a screw here that you can screw and unscrew, and they all come. I think this is one that actually like it requires one of the, I don't know what you call it, one of those star shapes. No, this is actually, I think this one's a real Phillips head, but some of them like require like a star shaped screwdriver, which is annoying, but they come with it. But anyway, this has a battery in it. And the battery gives you supposedly 5 seconds of power, of extra power to finish writing if you have a power outage. And they have another version of this that is $10 more. It's $60. It gives you 10 seconds instead of 5. So, but my question is, when would you need that? Do you have a sense of when that might actually help?
It's a fascinating question and a really interesting idea. I'm running through where that would exist. I mean, clearly there must be a purpose for it, or they wouldn't have made it. Although we just talked about the Astro, so I don't know, maybe not. But
I mean, the thing is,
it's fascinating.
Because if you lost power, right, the computer that it was attached to would lose power too. Or
Right.
if it were attached to a laptop, then that laptop has a battery. So, so I guess the idea is if you were in the middle of doing a write and then you lost power and there was something in the cache or something, then it would have time to write what was in the cache before turning off. But I don't know. I don't know how common of a scenario that is. Like, you lost power on your computer, the data didn't quite finish transferring from the computer, but we managed to save whatever data was in the cache. I mean, I don't know. It seems a little weird to me, but
I just found an article, or not an article, apparently a thread on Reddit. Why don't external SSDs include batteries? I'm gonna rabbit hole this.
Okay, well, this one does, and here's another thing. Dock Case also makes a SATA one, and the SATA one is the SATA one has something that SATA cases don't normally have, which is it has, first of all, it has a USB 10 gigabit connector. Although the drive you'd put in here may not benefit as much because you're going to be using a SATA drive, but that does make it actually potentially a little bit faster. It also has, I guess this is a pass through because it's got a second USB-C port for that says 3.5 volts, 3 amps. So I guess, and these are all bus powered, by the way, I should say. None of the things that I've just shown you requires it plugs into an external outlet. It gets all power over the USB bus.
Hooray.
So none of these things. The only things I have here which require a plug, I have not yet shown you. I also have a couple of these really big ones that are for hard drives. So I guess if you're putting a 3.5-inch hard drive in there, you need more power than standard USB port could provide to make that hard drive spin. But everything that I've shown you for SSDs, 100% bus powered. But this is a pass through. So my guess is you attach this to the computer, and then if you wanted to attach another peripheral to it, you could.
Interesting.
Unless you could use the battery to just charge something, but I don't think that's the case because the batteries in these are not very big. So I don't think that they're meant to charge other devices. I think they're just meant to give you a few seconds. But yeah, I'd love to know the answer of why this is an issue. I mean, I know obviously when you have SSDs, you've got a DRAM cache. So, so obvious, or a lot of them do. So, while things are being written, they may be in the cache at some point. Mm-hmm. So if you lost power, you'd lose that data. But at the same time, I mean, if you lost power, that whatever computer it was attached to would have lost power too.
Right. And
that means that the data that was coming over that USB port is not coming anymore. So how much is this going to help you?
So the first place my mind went to when you said it was a story that we covered in like the second year of the show. So, 13, 14 years ago, about a system on a chip that was designed for military purposes that recorded that certain commands had been sent to it, such as delete, and that they wouldn't do anything else until that command was completed if they were powered again. And so I can't help but wonder if maybe this is almost specifically about data destruction more than it is data creation.
That's not how they advertise it. I mean, I don't know. I'd love to. I mean, it just says like it's going to preserve, if you have a power outage. So I don't know.
Interesting.
I mean, obviously, there's definitely issues. I guess if you have an internal drive, right, an internal SSD, and you're saving data to it, and something's still in the cache when your computer craps out, then maybe it's not going to save. But like this is an external drive, so like the data was somewhere.
True.
I mean, because usually people are using these for backup. They're not using them as the primary storage.
Right.
So I don't know.
It's interesting.
Maybe if you're using it with a security camera, maybe something like that. Maybe not using it with a computer.
There's a bit of a theory happening in chat that's more complicated than I want to pitch on the show, but I'm gonna go into this in more detail as well. The Reddit thread went absolutely nowhere. It was more. So I don't understand why an NES cartridge has a backup battery in it and an SSD doesn't. All right, well, never mind. You're not. I'm not interested in that conversation.
Right. I mean, I don't. So I mean, it's even if you don't care about the battery, $50 is not that crazy considering that some of the other stuff that's out there, and you're getting a nice case and you're getting a screen. Although I don't know, I found the screen could be a little bit um, annoying because it's like showing you all this. It's like boots up or whatever, and like I just want my thing to work. Um, here's another drive, another enclosure that's kind of interesting. This is ASUS's Arion, it's called. Um, this is actually more expensive and it doesn't have a screen and it's not faster. This is 10 gigabit per second also, but it's got RGB. So because I
Of
don't
course
have
it
it on,
does.
you can't see that. But the ASUS Republic of Gamers logo here and this little plastics thing up here light up in RGB colors.
I would have expected
And I
nothing
have
less from something ROG branded.
right, and I'm not. It claims that you can control it with AuraSync, but I have not tested that aspect of it yet. Whether you could actually like program the RGB to light up a color that you want. If you don't try to program it, it's just it's just rainbow. Um, but I don't know if you could use ASUS's Armory Crate software or something to control this. So happens that I have Armory Crate. I have an ASUS motherboard in my PC, and I have Armory Crate on this computer, although I don't like to run it a lot because I don't like running extra software. But I will turn it on and I will attempt to see if I can actually program this to be a particular color. Um, it's nice, but I don't know why you would spend $70. So necessarily spend $70 when you could for something where you could spend maybe $30 and get the same performance, or $50 and get the same performance with a screen. But anyway, so so we will have a complete list of the best of these sometime this week on tomshardware.com. And I encourage you to check it out because there's going to be a lot of sales on these in the in this holiday season, and there's a lot of sales on SSDs. So this might be a great time for you to buy yourself a new SSD and take the old one and use it in Enclosure, or maybe you just want to build yourself an external SSD. I have to price this out, but I think it may actually come out cheaper to build your own external SSD with an Enclosure than it does to just buy something that is natively um, is natively an external SSD, in at least in some cases. And by the way, we are also putting out a list of the fastest and best USB flash drives, and even the best
Nice.
USB flash drives are not as good as an enclosed SSD. So if you don't mind carrying something that is this size, which is not that much bigger than, okay, it's not. I mean, here for reference, I have a USB stick, so obviously it's much bigger than a USB stick, right? But it's not so big that you couldn't carry it around. And if you were willing to carry something this big around, you could absolutely have. And of course, you have to. None of these has a plug. I mean, you have to carry a wire too. Um, you could have a much faster external drive than you would with any USB stick, because I don't think any of them has as good of a controller and flash memory as you get from a regular SSD.
I apologize for that short delay in coming back. I was looking for. I have an Intel Compute stick that looks almost exactly like that enclosure you just held up.
I have. Oh, I was going to say. I don't have that, but yeah, I mean, I've had ones like that. Yeah, so I mean, yes, right. I mean, in a way, this is too big, right? Because I mean, after all, this is just an SSD, whereas there are whole computers that can plug
Yeah,
in, but they're not the flash in them is not as fast. The
sure.
other thing I should say is that most of these are built for and primarily what we call a 2280 size M2, whereas whereas they do have holes on them for like if you get a shorter M2 stick, because there's like what 2240, I think 2240 and 2260, which means 2280 means 80 millimeters long, and then there are ones that are like I think 60 and 40 millimeters. So, however, the most common size and the cheapest size is the 80 millimeter.
Gotcha. So there's a question from chat. I want to know if I can hook that up and dump from my phone.
I don't see why not. I mean, I tell you what,
Certainly
I'll try it.
Almost certainly not from an iPhone, right?
I mean, yes. I don't have my Android. Oh wait! I do. I have this within reach of me. I'll tell you in one sec.
We're about to find out live here.
I don't see. I have to find a C-to-C cable because my phone is a C, and these are all C. But I do have C-to-Cs around here somewhere. Oh wait, here, this is a C-to-C. Let me see.
I've got one here in the drawer, but I don't
see. When you say dump,
through the...
when you say dump, what do you mean though? Like,
my guess is, knowing what the way he treats his phone, my guess is he wants to be able to move video from his phone onto the drive.
So let's see. Okay. This one here.
I know you well enough, Clinton. I know what you're looking for.
So right now I hooked this up and it's not lighting. This one is not lighting up.
Okay.
Although I don't know why it wouldn't. It should. Maybe there's not enough. So this, by the way, is a Pixel 4a 5G, just in case you were wondering what phone I'm attempting it on.
Okay.
Now, maybe it doesn't have enough bus power, or maybe I need to do something to turn it on.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
This is a Thunderbolt cable that I am attaching it with, and it's not recognizing it, but this is the one with the screen. So maybe it doesn't like it because it's that. To test it more thoroughly, I guess I would take the SSD out of here and put it into one of the non-screen containing ones. Also, maybe I need a USB on the go one, although I don't know why I would. You know what? I am going to experiment with this a little bit.
Awesome.
But I'm going to experiment with this a little bit in advance of my article because it is a very good question. And an
interesting one. I mean, because it's, for somebody like Clinton, right, who does a lot of drone stuff, does a lot of video and photography. I know he hooks up an SD card reader to the phone to dump stuff off fairly regularly. So, having something faster, bigger would be something that would be interesting.
So that's interesting. So there's something here that says USB controlled by connected device or this device, and it's attempting to charge the dock case, probably because there's a little battery in it or something.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that maybe this particular SSD
one of the other cases would work better.
One of the other cases might work better.
Yeah.
And so stay tuned. The other cases don't have a drive in them because I only had one drive for all these tests, and that's okay because I wanted to use the same drive anyway. So I will have to get a screwdriver, take this out, which is fine, and attempt it with a different case. And when I do that, I will let you know, because that it's no, I like that's a really good use case of this
Yeah.
um, because like if you are shooting video with your phone, which
Mm-hmm.
or photos, which a lot of people do, then they would want the ability to copy large files or copy lots of files onto a drive like this. And then, you could take the same drive and plug it into a computer and get those files off. So, and get those files on the computer and edit them. So, that's a great use case of this. Let me. I think that drive might be weird, but that's a con, right? If other drives could
Yeah,
do it
yeah.
and that drive cannot, then that's bad news for that drive. It may also be that I don't know if another Android. I mean, my phone's pretty standard for an Android phone, though.
Mm-hmm.
If a Pixel can't do it, then probably others can't either. But we'll
Right.
see.
Well, I look forward to hearing the results on this, and I look forward to seeing the full rundown and the flash drive rundown as well. And of course, uh, I suspect I know what next week is going to look like for the Piltch Point, as we will be talking about direct prep for Black Friday and what to buy, because I know
Yeah,
it.
buy an SSD. Buy like there's good deal. We have a blog. I should just mention real quick. We have a blog of early Black Friday deals right now on the homepage of tomshardware.com, and I've been maintaining it for 2 weeks. And without question, the best deals that I've seen are on SSDs. But that's maybe
Okay.
no surprise. But there's lots of great SSD deals right now.
Excellent. Well, it's something that is on my short list of things, and chat has shouted more storage, so it's on my short list. So I appreciate that, and as always, I look forward to what we talk about next time. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Piltch Point with Avram Piltch. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and of course hit the notification bell, since subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. And if you've got topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you don't want to follow us on YouTube, that's okay. There's a lot of other ways that you can follow our content. You can find all of that by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all the different ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.